Now let's look at versioning with media types themselves. Before we get started with detecting those media types, we're going to actually want to tell Web API that we want to support some new media types, and these media types are really going to be part of a formatter. So here, if we look at the JSON formatter we have here, this was the one that earlier in the course we had changed the serialization settings to support camel casing. We can go ahead and add some new media types. So I'm just going to make a new call called create media types and pass in the JSON formatter. I'll go ahead and refactor that to create it. And down here, all we're going to do is specify some new media types. These are custom media types for the different kinds of entities we're going to be dealing with. Now, the typical way that you define these is that anything after the VND is a vendor-specific media type. And this way you can create your own media types that have some meaning. And in fact, part of the name here is going to be the version of the object that we're returning or getting. Now, the reason we're creating these is we want to tell the JSON formatter, by the way, I know you're expecting to deal with application/JSON, also deal with these. So if someone requests one of these types, assume that we're dealing with the JSON formatter to do the parsing in of values as well as the parsing out of values. So we can just go for each media type in media types, and we can just use the JSON formatter .supported media types .add to create a new media type. And we do this by just saying new media type header value, much like the type we read inside of the accept header in the last video. And we can just pass in the media type, which is that string. This just is an easy way to build and add all these media types to the JSON formatter. By doing this, if we go ahead and look at, let's say, food and fiddler, we'll see that the data came back in the JSON format we expected, but also, interestingly, if we look at the headers, and it knew that because it knew that that's what we were expecting. But we can use this to our own advantage by using it for versioning, by being able to do things like, say, I want measures v2, and we can go ahead and write the code that's going to look at the media type and infer the version from it. So let's do that. To go back to our controller selector, and we'll repeat what we've done before. Create the version, get version from media type. Go ahead and add the request. Let's get rid of that. Now we actually want to do something similar because the media type that we're using is actually still in the accept header. So we can go ahead and use that. We're also going to want to use a regular expression to be able to look at those MIME types to infer the version. So I've got a pre-built regular expression that is basically going to look for application, VND, counting, anything after this, and then a V 1 through 9. This could be 1, 2, 3, 4, even 20 or 30. And it's going to infer with these groupings that we want to get both of these values out of it. So let's do what we did before, which is MIME and accept. So walk through each of them. And if we get as far as the end, we'll just go ahead and return 1 like we have before. So if we can't infer the version, we can go ahead and return 1. And let's see if we can get a match by saying expression. Well, you need to bring in regular expression namespace. Now we just need to go ahead and match on the MIME.media type. That's going to match the media type based on the regular expression. So we're looking for an expression that matches our vendor-specific accept header. And so first we're going to see if it did actually match. And we can tell because the item returned from match is going to be not null if it contains the information about what was matched. We can then look at the group. And then we can simply return the match.groups. In this case, we're going to use the second group and the value of that group. But what is the group? In regular expressions, the first group that is found is going to be the entire expression that was matched. So that's too much information for us. The second group is going to be this group defined in the regular expression with parentheses. That would be the second group. And then the third is the one after the .v, which is the one we're looking for. So the third group is going to be group 2 because, of course, it's zero-based. So now that we're returning the version, the rest of our code can go ahead and run and look for that version of the interface to be returned. Let's see that working. So back here, requesting our measures using the v2, we're now getting the full version. If we go ahead and say v1, we'll get the original version. And in this way, you can have your media types themselves be part of that versioning story and determine which controller you want to read simply by using the standard accept header, using these vendor-specific ones. There's no right or wrong here about the approach. I would like to tell you, well, the standard way to do it is this X, Y, or Z. I would find APIs that you like and appreciate and really model them after them. I really like the GitHub API a lot. I think that is one of the more modern REST-based interfaces, and you should spend some time looking at the way they're building their stuff because it's both very RESTful but also pretty pragmatic. So they're not trying to get people to do more work than necessary when all they need to do is to do something simple. But they also support some pretty elaborate and technically difficult things to allow them to do multi-calls and rich authentication and those sorts of things. And they've done versioning, I think, in a really smart way that is similar to this using vendor-specific types. I've shown you how to do this in a few different ways by writing your own selector controller, but let's look at a solution out there that is more of a prepackaged solution for doing this versioning.